Hey there, Alex here. The iPhone SE is around 2 years old now, and ever since it came out, it has been the best phone that you can get if you want something really compact but still decent. Android has the Sony Xperia Compact series of course, but it's still not quite as compact as the iPhone SE. So, is it still worth getting one in 2018? Let's do a quick revisit. First of all, I don't think we need to talk much about the design of the phone. At this point, we're all too familiar with it already. It's a classic. Personally, I like the metal unibody a lot, especially when comparing it to the more fragile glass back phone these days. There isn't really much to say about the 4-inch screen on the phone too. It's decent looking, but nowhere near what more modern phones has to offer, even when compared to cheaper phones. It is the same panel from the iPhone 5S after all. In fact, the entire front assembly is pretty much the same, down to the fingerprint sensor and the front camera. If you're looking for a really compact phone, the screen shouldn't be that big of a deal. But if you're just looking for a cheap iPhone, I would recommend the iPhone 6s instead, which has a much better display. Talking about the iPhone 6s, the iPhone SE has pretty similar specifications. Same A9 processor with 2GB of RAM. This is where the iPhone SE really shines for me. Like, in terms of day-to-day use and playing games on it, it still feels really smooth and responsive for the most part, even with the latest version of iOS. Other than a few minor annoyances like the fact that tapping the Bluetooth or Wi-Fi icon doesn't actually turn them off anymore, it's still the same iOS experience that many have grown to enjoy. iOS 11 has gone through plenty of bug fixes already, so I've not seen any major bugs on the phone. Best of all, the phone will probably be kept updated for another year or two, considering the iPhone 5S got the iOS 11 update. Battery life is another aspect of the phone that I really love. It's still really great, probably because of how iOS manages apps, and because of the smaller screen of course. It's still a phone that can get me through a day of normal use easily. If you play games on it, the smaller battery might not do as well, but then again, with such a small screen, you're probably not going to be gaming a whole lot on it. There is no fast charging or wireless charging, but because the battery is not that big, it doesn't take that long to charge the phone up, so it's really not a deal breaker for me. Then we move on to the camera, which is still relatively decent for the most part, at least for the rear camera, because the front camera is pretty much the same 1.2 megapixel sensor as the iPhone 5S. The rear camera is partly lifted from the iPhone 6s and it's decent. I mean, it's not going to blow anyone's socks off, but you can get decent shots on the phone. It also supports 4K recording, which is great to have for a budget device, and the video quality is actually pretty good. So overall, it's definitely still a usable camera in 2018. The iPhone SE should be an unlovable phone. As someone who likes shiny new toys to play with all the time, the iPhone SE should feel like an abomination, recycling components and design from older iPhones and repackaging it for sale as a new phone. But that was the opposite of how I felt about the iPhone SE when I reviewed it back then. Even in 2018, I actually still think it's worth buying if it's cheap enough, or you still love that small form factor. It still does a lot of things well. This is still my favorite phone to bring with me for a jog because of how easy it is to hold and use one-handed, and the fact that it supports Apple Pay is a nice bonus too. I do have to say this though, if your budget allows and you don't mind a bigger phone, I'll still recommend the iPhone 6s. You get plenty of upgrades in return, like a better screen quality with 3D touch, a faster fingerprint sensor, faster 4G speeds, better speaker, and better cameras. But if you want a small compact phone above all else, the iPhone SE is still one of the best options out there. Thanks for watching this revisit of the iPhone SE. Do leave a comment below if you're still rocking the iPhone SE. I'm curious to see how many of you are still using this little gem. Thanks again, and see you guys on the next one.